All right. Hello and welcome everybody to New Earth Consciousness. Tanya here. I am excited to be speaking with Emma Bushell. And she is a channeler. She works within the quantum and has many gifts. And so, Emma, thank you for taking the time to be here with us.
Oh, so excited. Thanks for inviting me. And hello, everybody.
Yeah. And so if you're watching this, comment below. If you're watching the replay, let us know. I'm excited to answer any questions and see your comments. So Emma, let's get started. So tell me about, what has led you into this work that you do? I mean, channeling is something that has been a term that's been coined that I think is relatively new. But it's, definitely, I feel like it's been increasing in popularity. And from what I have seen and heard from a lot of people who are considered channelers, it's not something that they were seeking out. Like they didn't wake up one day and said, "Hey, I want to be a channeler. Like, how do I do that?" Maybe some people do. They're interested and they want to learn. But I think the ones that where it arrives to them, it's almost changes the course of their life or the direction. So I'm curious about what your journey has been.
Yeah, thank you for bringing this up because it is a very much a modern battered word, channeling, that has many sort of varieties of perceived thought around the word, because a lot of people say, I want to channel my inner fashionista or whatever they might say to get inspiration, or channeling can be simple as focus. So it's really in the spiritual context we're talking, where I didn't just arrive at being a channeler, like you said, and it's just so poignant because my channel has developed for so many years, and also increasing the amount of time I discipline to use it, because it is like going to the gym every day. You don't just wake up and go, "Oh, hi, I'm going to channel today." It's a discipline that you follow through your work. And that's a really important part of it, because I take it very seriously, because it affects myself as a human, my physicality, my energy. And if I'm not looking after myself within that, then my channeling can deplete me, So I'm a trance channeler. And that's a big difference between just channeling psychic gifts. And I don't mean to dim that at all, but my psychic gifts came online when I was very, very young. But becoming a channeler, as in trance channeling, was really in the last 3 years. And that's been my discipline to support people with their gifts and awakenings. That's what I do. I help guide people within their awakenings. That I've disciplined my channel to, the more you use it, the more that it develops.
Sure.
And also I'm reaching, my channel is reaching frequencies that I didn't really know about. So it's been an exploration of discovery for myself to use my channel in trance and be okay with that.
What do you mean by that? So tell me, like, was it? So let's take it one step at a time.
There's so much to talk about, right?
Yeah. So first of all, can you define trance channeling? What that is? I mean, I feel there's so many different channelers out there that I see. I mean, it's like, there's the woman that channeled the Course in Miracles, and then there's Abraham Hicks who's channeling these several entities, and there's Bashar who's channeling a certain entity or being. Like, some people channel a bunch of different, like they just channel whatever shows up, so I'm curious, yeah, if you could talk about that, maybe what is the uniqueness around the way that you're channeling? Yeah, what does trance mean? Like, how are you putting yourself into a trance, and what does that experience feel like to you?
Well, of course, when it first happened, being really blunt, I was like, what the hell is going on here? Because you use discernment with your channel, because it's not always light that's coming through it. It's deviances that are within the, I call it the quantum field, or the energetic field that you're in, has different entities or different light beings within that. So you've got to be really discerning, and that really happens in the moment with trance, because you're tuning into a frequency, almost like tuning into a channel on a radio, that you're picking up vibrational frequency that you then channel through. And how it works with me is that I can actually feel the sensation in my own complete body when I'm being tranced. I can feel and sense the physicality of that being, which is a lot to deal with in that state. But I almost, well, I take a back seat. Emma takes a back seat. So my personality, my ego, my everything moves. So without the ego, with the ego, you're always in disbelief or doubt of what your gifts are. That's my first stage of anyone that comes into my field of work, where they're doubting their gifts, or they're not, or playing down what they believe to be true. Is usually because their ego steps in and says it can't be true. So channeling is purely a pure channel where there's a gap between the ego mind and you just become a space of being in your mind. So your creativity or your intuition goes to one side, and your ego goes to another. And I can actually feel when I'm in that state of pure frequency coming through, and how it comes through with me is by my voice and my light language and my hands coding symbols. It really does depend on the intention that I set at the beginning.
Interesting.
You're always in control of it.
You're always in control of it.
Always. I will never let myself be working through me without the highest intention.
Gotcha.
I work on intention base all the time, because that's my mirror. If you imagine a mirror frequency coming from my intention to the receiving of the match of the mirror that's coming through my channel, they know that's where I'm going to be. And I play that very, very with discipline, because it has caught me out many times when I haven't been, I've been learning.
Yeah. I would say it's kind of feels like I mean, maybe in the beginning, would you say it felt like uncharted territory? I mean, you had said like,
your
first experience was like, what the heck is happening? So was there a spontaneity around either the light language or feeling the sound of your voice change that caught you off guard, or how did that manifest?
I think because before I went into I'd become a trance channeler, I was channeling psychic gifts, but also energies. But I had a lot of experience of dark entities in my field. And that was what taught me how to discern and know the energies that are in my quantum field, are in my energy state and my field around me, and those of other people that I work with. Generally, I can just tell, I can tell the energies that are coming in, even though they say they are light. They mimic that. It's total crap.
Yeah, so how do you know? I mean, that's the
I
thing.
just know.
There's a deception. I mean, yes, it's like, well, I mean, it's even in the Bible, right? Like it even talks about the false prophets and whatnot. They show up
Yeah.
as love and light, but they actually aren't.
Yeah.
So would you say that the ability to discern is simply just,
It's been through experiment. It's been through my
yeah.
own experiment of within my life, and being in the thick of entities that, quite frankly, have plagued my sleep. I've experimented with them all my life. So I've been not on my purpose because of them, because I was scared and my fear took over. I've gone through so much research to find out about more about them, because what happens with me, I get shown things clairvoyantly, and then I go research that. I get shown by research, and then I go and master it again and again. I always do it and challenge myself so that I'm not I'm doing things to my highest potential. So when you've got an entity, you're faced up with a dark light or an entity that's mimicking a light being, you can feel a different frequency when you're in their field, but it's like it almost looks like an overlay. It feels like an overlay.
Yeah. I think I feel like I've had that experience, not through my own experience of, quote unquote spirit guides, but I remember one woman who was, revered as a very talented, psychic medium, all of that. And this was during COVID, and she was talking about what her guides were showing her about the future. And the way that she was talking about what her guides were showing, like she was like, oh, it's just going to be great. It's going to be like this and this and this and this. And I'm listening, I'm going like, like that does not resonate. I'm not signing up for whatever it is you're describing. Like that does not resonate for me at a soul level. So I imagine that when there is information that comes through, I mean, I guess, it just really takes trusting your own gut, really, the whole gut, heart, brain connection of knowing like, yeah, no, we still have to maintain our free will and choice, right? As far as what do we want to accept as truth and what do we know isn't. And so, yeah.
I mean, I can give you a really cool example of this.
Yeah.
If you want to go galactic.
Yeah, let's go galactic.
Yeah, let's dial it up. Because a massive discernment and a massive lesson that I experimented probably about a year, all of last year. I was showcased the galactic frequency through being a human contact with them. This is very new to my work, probably 18 months before that, 6 months before that. But in the last 12 months, I took it more seriously because they weren't giving up contacting me. And I didn't know anything about galactics. And this is what I want to point out to people that think that, you, me, or anybody else has got all this sus. I had to go Google this, I just didn't know about this. I just had the names. I had stuff that I'd never known before. I just wrote it out after I was trance channeled or during trance channel and go Google it, because I hadn't heard of things like Arcturians. I hadn't heard of things like the Anunnakis in the way that it was presented to me.
Interesting.
So, that's a really important part of this, because experimenting is one thing, but actually I get it through clairvoyance or the research I'm given. I get shown where to look. And I go read it and I think, holy shit, this is real. I actually sometimes challenge myself to Google it, hoping it's not real.
Yeah. But no such luck, huh?
Like, oh, it does exist.
That's
I
interesting.
didn't know this. It's like in the solar system, it's like billions of miles away. And I suppose that's just become being human, right? And you're thinking, wow, this is actually real, Emma. So we got to kind of research this a bit more. So giving the examples, when I was channeling, I channel a group of 6 contacts from the galactic star seeds, solar systems, and I channel their heads. I call them heads of contacts from like Lemurian, Palladic, Arcturian, Andromeda, Syrian. There's myself included in this, and Lyrans. And they all come in as their main contact through my channel. Now, they used to come one at a time, but now they can come as a collective, because my development of my channel has got more capacity to hold that frequency through my own self-care, because it takes a lot of discipline to keep your channel really high.
Yeah.
Through diet and nutrition and looking after yourself and all the things.
Yeah.
So there was a moment where I was presented with, just before I was introduced to the contacts of the star seeds, I had the introduction of the Anunnakis, who came first. Now that was a little bit like, holy shit, this is discernment now, because their energy was, for me, too strong. And very it wasn't the same energy as the others, and I knew that I didn't want them working with me. That's not to say that some people, because I know channelers that do channel Anunnakis, but they were, I'm doing this, we're going to do this with you, and that's it, final. There was no love and introduction and choice within it. And they came in to completely control my channel. And then I did my research about the Anunnakis and their origins of what they were about. If people don't really know, they formulated very much around the pyramids, the Egyptian pyramids, and they were known to be partly responsible for the levitation of those building blocks of the Egyptian pyramids. So, their architecture and their levitation frequencies, this is the information I've been channeled, are responsible for the pyramids being built. So they are very much in a controlling frequency, because they want people to work for them. They're very much, you work for me, we don't do anything for you energy.
Interesting.
And I then basically said, I'm not working for you. But they came back a couple of times, and they're strong. They could take over my channel completely.
Wow.
But not with the same intention of purest light. It would be to kind of use my channel, and that was the reason I wanted to bring this up, because not all that you know to be true is the right way to be channeling. So yeah, that was a bit of a baptism by fire with the Anunnakis. They haven't been back since. And I've also worked with my other teams of galactics to support me with that. So they're completely different, heart-led race of light beings.
What is just out of curiosity, if you happen to know, like what do you feel is the intent of the Anunnakis?
The intent, I felt, was because this is really interesting, actually, because it's come to light since I launched my podcast last November, where I channel, slowly channeling it. And the Anunnakis are touched upon because they want to be remembered and come back with their wisdom and knowledge around the Egyptian pyramids. Because they worked with the pharaohs of that time. You know, they worked with the priestesses of that time, because the priestesses around that time were oracles. You know, they worked with the gods. They worked with the sun god Ra, for example, to bring in the oscillation of the sun in terms of the receiving that over the pyramid structures before they were built.
I see.
So their ritual was to pray to use the resources of celestial beings. It's phenomenal, and they want to be remembered for that.
Interesting. Yeah. So I feel like in exploring consciousness and exploring all these different things, I feel like, you say that you work with people and helping them move through their awakening process, which can be rather jarring if, that was kind of my experience of going through awakening, was just like, whoa, like going from living in 3D reality to just like getting the lid blown off and realizing, whoa, there is so much more here. And how do I navigate this? And so one of the things that I feel like I see that it can be very easy to kind of go down a rabbit hole, right? Like you're kind of describing that for yourself. Like, okay, I've been experimenting and just trying to find the path. Ultimately, I feel like sometimes when people talk about certain realities about, our connection with celestial beings and, past lives and all this stuff that's available as far as information is concerned. For me personally, like I always like to go back to the question, well, like, okay, well, how is this actually serving me? Because it can be a distraction from what you actually came here to do and who you came to be. So I'm curious, like, how do you work with these celestial galactic beings to actually support, the clients that you work with?
Yeah, it was really interesting because my work's changed phenomenally. And I think the biggest part of this is the word that you use, distraction, and the word that I use as well is interference, because a distraction can take you into places that are very dark and your mind has so much subconscious or just things you just never knew that was sort of stored in your brain.
Yeah.
And you can fall into this, well, what is reality question when you're going through an awakening. What is actually real here? Because your mind has become so open as a vessel, as a channel, because everything you thought you knew has now been flipped. So it's almost become a space of what actually is real then. And that's when people fall into this, really deep, dark place of discovery, but you can get lost in that and then create a different reality of fear, which I call interference, becoming the dominant factor in this that overrides all of it. And the fear then creates completely different stories relative to your emotional reaction to what's going on with you. Because generally there is no one around you. You're very, very lucky if there's people around that you get what you're talking about. How can they if they just don't know what you're talking about, because they have never experienced it? They're just looking at it with the welfare of you at mind, right? Hopefully, if you're in the right support network. A lot of people aren't. I
Yeah.
certainly wasn't. So it was almost like, I'm going to be in this rabbit hole for a while, which I was. I
Mhm.
went down the mental health road. I went down going to see my doctor. I went down thinking there was something wrong with me.
Yeah.
I went down thinking I'd be locked up, you know?
Mhm. Mhm.
But
Yeah.
but the locked up business was because I had generational trauma. This is from my own development and my own seeking of what I help other people with, is that my generational patterns was, I had a lot of psychics in my family on the maternal side that were locked up.
Yeah.
So the belief system of an emotional charge that was in my DNA, and me carrying it through years of my grandmothers and great grandmothers and mother
Mhm.
having that belief. So that was already in my DNA. So it just validated, yeah, I'm nuts.
Right. Yep.
At one point, until I just thought, I can't be. You go through the exhaustive process of elimination of, this can't be happening because actually I'm believing it, so I'm fueling it. So therefore, I'm doubting every part of who I am.
Mm.
Um, but for my journey particularly, I had to go through that to experience it, to help other people. Then I get a lot of people that doubt their gifts and are strangely fearful of what they're actually channeling, because they're very, very strong channelers. They're very powerful people that have super, super amazing gifts that they can't access because of fear.
Mm.
So like we all do, if we've gone through it, we can evolve somebody else by guiding them. And that's been my journey, not one that I wanted, like you with your awakening, the
Right.
fierceness of it all. But then
Mhm.
you give light to other people because of that,
Right.
because of what you've gone through. However, when you're in it, in the thick of the darkness, the deep darkness,
Mhm.
um, there is a resolve point where you think you've had enough of it and you put a lid on it and you sort it, or you still continue in that dark field for quite a long time, which is where people generally come and find me.
Mm. Mhm.
And the fear has become too great, but
Mhm.
they can't be anything else because they know actually that they've opened something within them that they're stuck in. So they've got to
Yeah.
get out of it somehow.
Yeah. This is true. I mean, it's kind of like that was my experience in my awakening. And, having my poor mother trying to help me. She didn't know what to do except, I actually ended up in a psychiatric ward for a
Yeah.
couple of nights,
Yeah.
and I'm there, and the deep knowing that I had in being there, I was like, "I know too much." Like,
Yeah.
all of that they're doing here, like, they just wanna give me a pill and think that's gonna
Yeah.
fix this? I'm like,
Yeah.
"No way. No way." Like, whatever I had opened was opened, and
Yeah.
I knew that there was no escape. There was no escaping what was happening, even
Yeah.
though my human really wanted to be like, "Yeah, sure, give me a pill. I'd love for all of this to end right now." You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
It's not
And it is like that.
but it's like but when you come to a certain level of awakening, you realize, like, okay, like, there is no going back from this. Like, this is but it can be terrifying in the sense for in my case, is like you were saying, I had nobody around me to just say, "Tanya, you're okay.
Yeah.
Like, what this is what's happening to you, and let me help you." Like, everywhere I turned, it was either I was told like, for me, I thought maybe it was a physical thing going on, and, of course, all the doctors saying, "There's nothing wrong with you."
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
of course, then going to seeing counselors who are just did not have they just didn't have the tools or the skills or the knowledge to deal with what was happening. I mean, they were doing the best they could, but it was
Yeah.
like I was on my own completely until I met in my case, I finally did meet somebody that understood what I was going through.
Yeah.
And they were very much, I mean, it was just by coincidence. I put in quotes because I know there are no coincidences, but it was like a destined meeting that I found this person. But it really, yeah, it's like,
And that's like, I bet you found such a relief.
oh, it was huge. Well, it's what healed me. It was like,
Yeah.
boom, like massive transformation after that. I have to
Yeah.
take off my sweater. It's getting too hot. Yeah. And so, you know, I think that's what, it's so important now. I think like the service that you provide, more and more people are waking up all the time. And so, and I meet these people and it's like, they're overwhelmed. And it's like, yeah, you're not going to find the answers in the mainstream culture for any of this. So,
Yeah. And also the concept in the mainstream, which I'm a bridge. We're all a bridge between 3D and 5D, but they term it midlife crisis, or they term it, you know, having a little bit of an episode, or, you know, actually you're having a spiritual awakening. That's really what they're saying, but they're not. And, you know, I think counseling has or is becoming so more modality based now rather than just counseling, because a lot of people are still trapped in loops going to counselors, because talking about it is one thing, and I give a lot of liberation for just talking to somebody, just to relieve yourself that you're not going nuts.
yeah.
However, to access the right tools to support somebody with, in my case, it's energetic alchemy or quantum field alchemy, is completely different.
Yeah.
Because sometimes with spiritual, especially interventions where you're dealing with dark mimicked entities that have kind of wheedled their way into your fear-based field in the quantum, you've got to treat this with, you know, you have got to not be a counselor that just asks you to talk about it. You have to go in and deal with it. So an intervention element to that alchemy, because in the wrong hands, a bit like, you know, I'm talking around this a little bit, but cognitive, like something like CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy,
Yeah.
actually exacerbated and worsened by someone who's in an anxious state, is the wrong method to actually, or wrong theory to actually give and support to somebody, because it will just spiral somebody out and make their anxiety worse and panic worse, because they're actually going through a spiritual awakening, which is a very different thing.
Yeah, it's so different. I remember the woman that I worked with, and this was, you know, 27 years ago. Yeah, I think I remember like being given a worksheet, like, if you're feeling this, then think this, think this way instead. And I'm like, there's no way I can, like, you want me to somehow control and manage my thoughts like it's some kind of like doing daily chores. Like I couldn't do it, really. I mean, it was kind of ridiculous. It just had no power
Yeah.
at all. You know, it was just, but yeah, so there's something that's happening spiritually, and I would have to agree with you. It's definitely energetic. I think for me, the only relief that I got that kind of helped to deal with the anxiety part was Reiki back then. You know, a lot of people kind of end up in Reiki, right, as a modality that can help. But yeah, it's really, it's interesting. And so you are, so how do I say this? So if someone's coming to you and they're like, yeah, I am completely overwhelmed. I feel like people that have a spiritual awakening are those that are at a point in their life when they realize nothing is working. They've backed themselves into a corner. They realize I'm in a job that I hate. I went to school and aimed for a career that I thought was the thing to do. And now I'm suddenly realizing it's completely wrong for me. I feel totally disconnected like it's such a brutal awakening to be to have been on a certain path thinking, yeah, I'm checking all the boxes. I'm doing what mom and dad told me and what society tells me, and this is the path to lead to a good life. And they suddenly find themselves like, okay, I'm in a full revolt and I don't know what to do. And I don't know why it's happening. It's really can be overwhelming. So how do you work with something like that? What would working with you look like exactly? Is it just you go directly into to channeling the information that they need to hear and doing energy work around that?
I think there's so many layers you can go to, but my strength is that I'm guided by what they need psychically, because I have all senses. So I'm shown what they need at the time when they present it. So I deal with root causes,
Yeah.
but you have to tread quite carefully when someone's in that state.
Yeah.
So I have the ability for guidance to come from their spirit team and my spirit team in conjunction with each other. We work together to see what's presented at the time so that they know I can voice out what they need at that time. So I navigate with my team really strongly in their team. And then I'm shown that. And what then normally happens is that first layer is softened, or that anxious, because all it is charge, energetic charge,
Yeah.
just got to capacity. So normally what happens is that because everybody's different, everyone presents themselves differently, I take the charge out of the situation. And then they automatically feel relief. And that's presented in the way that they need it by their team.
Yeah.
I've done things that I would never, ever dream of doing, but it was right for that person at that time. And I take an example. I had somebody came many years ago. A lady came to me and she was having an awakening, and she was having an awakening because her mother had passed, and she, was in full grief with that whole experience of, losing somebody, but it was bringing up a lot of inner child wounding, of abandonment, and all the things that she hadn't thought she needed to sort is just happened with the grief process. But actually what was going on when I went into her field was her mother hadn't passed and was charging. Actually, her mother was trying to help her, but actually it was keeping her in charge mode of heightened state of grief. So we had to actually unravel this quite codependent relationship with her and her mother, actually, which was part of the issue.
Yeah.
To release, because I do mediumship as well in my work. It comes in, and I release that person to release pass over. I had to do that first before we could work together. And then we had a basis of that root cause to work with from her mother's codependency with her and vice versa. But the charge was her mother still.
Right.
So we couldn't have ever have cracked that open unless we'd got into that and then worked with the root cause. Now, if that person went to mainstream, she wouldn't have ever have known that. She'd probably be stuck on pills or gone through a cycle of CBT or counseling or worse still, psychotherapy, and been still in that situation because that was fact. That was going on. That was actually what was going on in the quantum of the unseen realms that people just have no clue about.
Yeah. Right.
And it was so liberating to release her mum on one side, but release them both from this charge of codependency.
Yeah. Wow. Fascinating. Yeah. And I agree. She would never have known what was happening had she gone to a regular therapist. And yeah, and if anything, it probably would have affected her the rest of her life.
And this is what I mean. People are
Yeah.
just then stuck in this cycle of overwhelm, but a lot of the time you're in an energetic frequency that there are things that are patterning in your, I call it the energetic field or the quantum field around you, that you can't navigate without somebody like you, me, or somebody else who's skillfully factored in this because they've experienced it and developed their gifts, can
Yeah.
actually access their quantum space to see this interference or see the charge. I just look for charges. I look for causes and charges and where they're joining up
Mhm.
and what's going on behind it. It's almost like I get shown, I get navigated to where it is and what I need to clear. And it can be as simple as that. Sometimes it's layered more than normal if they've gone through years of traumatic experiences because of it, because a lot of people blame and shame themselves
Yeah.
in a hidden way.
Yeah.
And that causes its own state of being around them
Yeah.
that you have to dissect. But
Yeah.
it's very easy to do as long as you go to the person that knows what they're doing.
Yes. This is true.
This is another thing we could talk about within the spiritual industry, because there are a lot of people that are set up as, oh, I do this, that, and the other, but not necessarily using discernment. It's just a great marketing exercise because it's modern and popular and everybody loves a bit of spiritual woo, which is absolutely devastating.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think really, and it's hard because it's like, I don't want to instill fear in people of like, oh, be careful who you work with. Like,
Yeah.
yes.
But you do have to be careful who you work with.
Yes, yes, yes. And I want to empower people by saying,
Yeah.
really listen to your gut and not the words that they're saying, because your energy body, especially, I mean, I'm highly sensitive, so I can tell, and this has taken me years to figure out.
Yeah.
People can be saying one thing, but energetically something else is going on. And so for the energetically sensitive, it's confusing because you're like, well, you're saying this, but I'm feeling like something doesn't feel right,
Yeah. Yeah.
But because, I mean, I think especially as women, we've been conditioned, and just children in general, right? Like, oh, like you should be trusting, you should bow down to authority. Like this woman or person or whoever has got this title, so they must know what they're saying. It must be something wrong with me that I'm feeling off, or whatever. So I really am I always want to empower people by saying, just trust your gut, and also know that ultimately you get to decide what's true or not true. So, like even if like when I'm doing family constellations work, I'm always asking like, how is this resonating? Does this not make any sense? Or is it making sense? And I would say most of the time it's making sense. I think I had one client where it was like, yeah, this isn't resonating. And it's like, okay, well, just just leave it then. Don't take it in. It's like we always get to choose about what we're choosing to take on and not. But
and vice versa. If I feel that I'm not the right person or the right mentor or the right person to work with that person, and I know somebody else that would do that, I would wholeheartedly recommend that,
Right.
because not everybody is your person to work with.
Yeah.
Because I strongly believe in predestined contracts. People come to you because you've got a contract with that person to work with. I
Hmm.
strongly believe that, just through navigating my own work with people. And I know if that person's not right for me, and I will say that.
Yeah.
And
Or
that's
you
the
may have
right,
a knowing of like, actually
you
this
know?
modality is going to help you much more, or you
Yeah.
need to go work with
Big
an Ayurvedic
time.
practitioner, like, like it could
Yeah.
be anything. Yeah, definitely. That, I mean, for sure, that's kind of like a very clear indicator signal that who you're talking to is in integrity, when they have the humility to admit,
Yeah.
like, I'm probably not the best fit for you.
Yeah.
I
Without
recommend
a
that
doubt.
the other thing. Yeah, for sure.
Because people are too precious to be trampled through with a process that is really sensitive, and can keep you in a state of perpetual motion of,
Yeah,
for so long.
yeah,
It doesn't have to be like that.
yeah, beautiful. I love that you said that. It doesn't have to be like that. It really doesn't.
No,
It really
no.
doesn't. And it can be done with a lot of grace. I mean, what you're talking about, I mean, I'm sure you encounter a lot of trauma that's held in a person's field that's just stuck. And um, it definitely takes, like you said, to tread carefully as you're peeling back the layers so that you're not blowing somebody wide open and
Yeah.
having them face something they're not ready to face. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And the beauty of this is, for those people that are listening and watching, is when you activate your patterns, and I call them patterns of discovery, because the patterns that are holding you hostage within this are actually your most liberating parts of you, that will empower you and your gifts and your natural creativity beyond belief. It's
Yeah.
just reformatting and reprogramming those patterns
Yeah.
that will be freeing for you,
Yeah.
because we fear them so much, but the pattern keeps you there. That's why they're a pattern, because they've got a hold on you energetically. But actually, once you activate that and liberate it, you will find that behind the patterns is this beautiful tapestry of, of
Yeah.
just your own creativity, your own talent sits behind it.
Totally. Like, I always feel like I want to celebrate when someone comes to me and they're just like, my life is falling apart. I'm like, great. This is
Yeah,
like,
such an
this is such a
invitation.
potent, like, amazing opportunity for you. You have no idea. Like, when someone is really they're just at that edge, I'm like, yeah, you are about ready to quantum leap into a whole nother life experience.
Yeah,
And so, yeah, like giving yourself the support that you need so that you're not like spending time in that place longer than you need to be.
yeah,
It's really about like, and to people who are listening to this, I really want to anchor this in. It's like, if you find yourself in that space, it's like, it's not something to be feared, but definitely to be embraced. And like, yeah, okay, here it is. They say, our triggers are our treasures and whatever. I mean, it really is true, because it is, once, like you said, once you unravel and tease apart that energy that's just locked and stuck, it just, it liberates you to where it just dissolves completely. And so when it dissolves, there's just a sense of like, oh wow, yeah, I'm not the same person. you know
yeah. And so much space is created in
yeah,
you, and
yeah,
that's filled, mainly behind that is filled with, first it's relief, then it's acceptance, and then it's pure joy.
Yeah.
Because really the bottom line for this is freeing up space so you can be free and live joyfully. And really that is the most abundant state of being to be in.
Yeah.
It's not a fairy tale. It's not like you see in the movies of, you know, a Walt Disney film being so joyful. But actually it is an existence that everybody has every right to be. And so many people live in absence of joy. Because of a lot of them have got this patterning going on that they've inherited.
Yeah.
And they're just not aware of it until something happens with an awakening. And then they're like, holy shit, what is this? But then it's this discovery of the patterns or the invitation, like we've talked about, to actually be supported through it, because behind all that is actually a liberance of joy and your own being free to be who you want to be and the desire to be that.
Yeah.
You can see more clearly.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the reality that you've created of the should have done's life. That's the hardest part, because it's an identity that never really was yours anyway, but you've formulated your whole life around it because that's who you thought you were.
Yeah.
That's the difficult bit of getting yourself out of a marriage or getting yourself, you know, rehoused somewhere or located differently or giving up your job and you can't bear it anymore. You know, these are all invitations and they're not easy to navigate, but they are possible, like you and I both know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
You
totally,
know?
it's totally possible. And it's, when you overcome those patterns, there's just so much more wisdom now that you're carrying as you move forward, so that I mean, challenges always come, right? They never disappear. It's not like we do this work and then you're just like, you're home free.
Yeah. No,
No,
it'd be great, right?
But it's just like, okay, there's you have more capacity then to meet the challenges, and you have a more awareness around, like, as the challenges, as they come up, it's like, okay, here's another opportunity for me to grow. There's more courage. At least that's my experience. My life is that I feel like I have more courage to face the unknown, and have a deeper trust around the unfolding of life itself. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's actually not an easy thing, but it was always there as the thing.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
It's quite weird, that, isn't it?
Yeah. It's really the truth. Like, yeah, that everything happens for you. Like, even the most horrific things that, you know, we all say it. We all say, like, why is this happening to me? Right?
Yeah.
We don't know it when we're in it. It's only in hindsight when we can look back and go like, oh, okay, I can see how I created that. And to take ownership and be like, okay, well, now I'm choosing differently. You know, it's really all about the culmination of our choices.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Amazing.
wonderful. So, Emma, tell us about, you know, what offers do you have available for people? How can they work with you?
Yeah. So I think the best thing that I can offer, really, I have some taster meditation and exercises that I have on my website, that people could just have for free as a free gift from me, just to sort of have a little bit of a taste of my work. And then I have things like a really, you know, affordable option of energetic protection, how to create your own way and your unique way of protecting your energy. And I offer that really affordable so that people can try it out and have a play with it and experiment if it's new to your world, or just to be in my energy and see if I'm the right support for you. You know, that's a really important part of my work, because that's a fundamental match for me, if somebody's feeling that right energy. So there are really good ways to come into my world and navigate yourself and just try it out. And then I have an academy where I've got an globally accredited training to actually learn how to channel, or open your gifts so that you're aware of your belief systems, your energy systems that are working, what's going on behind the scenes a little bit, so that you're actually working and self-helping yourself through this foundational structure that I give as a training.
Mm-hmm.
So I have that course available for people to access now. And I worked heavily on that over the last 18 months to get that accredited by mainstream.
That's amazing. Wow.
Not by,
really?
yeah, no, I was policed to high heaven with this. That was my mission, and I got it through.
Yeah.
First channeling course that they ever got through. They've never done it, which is why I was policed so much. That's through a global accredited course, training provider called CPD, which is a mainstream training provider.
Interesting. So people can get credits. They can get credits towards their continuing education.
Yes, continual professional development, or personal development. Yes.
I see. Okay.
So say if there's a lot of people out there that could be anybody, it could be teachers, it could be artists, it can be songwriters, it can be anybody that wants to learn how to channel and create their own, navigate their own gifts. It is mainstream with your own continued professional personal development. Beautiful. So you get points towards that as in your own way.
That's amazing. Holy cow.
I know, right? I wanted to do this.
Congratulations. Holy moly. Well, that took some determination on your part.
Yeah, it took a lot out of me, that one. I had to have a bit of a break after that because it was all downloaded by celestial beings, by the way.
Yeah. That's funny.
That's accessible. You can work one-to-one with me. I do 6 to 3 months with me, very one-to-one in our own way. And I work wholly by access on Zoom and by WhatsApp, so that I keep you in my field and I'm in your field for the whole duration. And I have a free Facebook group that you can join called Awake Official, and that's for free. You come into that space with everybody else. And I also have the Quantum Time Traveler podcast that you can access and be in my frequency and actually see me in action, channeling, trance channeling, but also just by learning a little bit more about galactics, about channeling, about mediumship, about frequencies. It's a bit of a tool to just listen. I keep them really short. I haven't got a good attention span when I'm channeling. I like to do 20-30 minutes max on my channel.
Which is a lot, actually.
Which is a lot.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of information that comes through, I bet, in 20 to 30.
Yeah. But I also, for the listener, 20 minutes is quite a long time if you're in a rush or you just go to work and you want to switch on something to listen to.
Yeah.
I try and make it as accessible as possible and give access for people that need support when you and me both had nothing.
Yeah.
Now you can have this complete access to everything that you need.
Beautiful.
It's so important. That's my big value for people, is to have somewhere or some support to go to.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Emma.
Oh, appreciate it.
Really, thank you for this conversation, and thanks to the audience for watching. Please like and subscribe, share this video with those that you think might benefit from learning more about Emma and her work, and definitely check out her website, emmabushell.com.
Thank you.
Free resources. Check out her podcast, and much love to everyone, and thank you, Emma, so much.
Oh, it's been a pleasure, and thank you so much for your energy. It's beautiful.
All right, much love, and bye for now, everyone.
Thank you.